Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Challenge 40 Wrap Up podcast for episode 16. I am Brian Cohen. With me, as always, is my co-host, Ali. How are you?
I don't know why all I could think of is Bay caught me slipping. Is that still relevant?
I don't think so, but it could be. Anything's relevant if you make it relevant.
I don't think I have that social cap. How are you?
Doing good. Doing good. Excited to talk about it. The third straight no decision episode, but still a fun one. So happy to be here.
We've really gone back to a simpler time. Was it Wes? I saw somebody on the internet being like, I'm tired of the format where like people don't know who's going in until the arena. And like
Mm-hmm.
maybe there's something to that. Like maybe we are getting interesting, like emotional moments that sort of matter because we know the two people coming in. We're getting some interesting metagame talk about like the next episode, both on the women's side and for the
Mm-hmm.
final, that I'm not hating. So no one's more surprised than I am that I'm not complaining about the no episodes, but I think they've done a good job the last few days, episodes.
Yeah, no, I felt that way, especially about this one. It really just felt like a lot of just human interest pieces without all the people. Like normally with these shows, it's just so focused on like what they're doing and the strategy and things like that. And it's some like sometimes some goofy relationship stuff. But I don't know, I feel like we're getting really good to know a lot of these people. Like we got a lot of stuff with Derek this week. We don't always get a chance to do. I feel like we got a lot of stuff with like Rachel, even with Cara sometimes. Like I don't know. It felt like we were just like hanging out with them, and then every once in a while they're like, "All right, we gotta go do these activities now. Let's go do our daily. Let's go do our elimination." I don't hate it. I mean, it's not like what I normally would like, but maybe I'm like beaten down by the show that it's like so long that I'm like trying to find what I like. But for some reason, like this hasn't bothered me too much, and I was like, "Hey, you know what? We're just hanging out with some buddies and some pals, and we're learning about them." That's it.
Now, it's interesting. You dressed more as someone who would be covering a human interest piece, like more of a PBS thing. I
Mhm.
dressed really just to muck it up.
Yeah,
But including, I think I've worn this on the pod before. I had this shirt made because I saw a meme online.
I feel like I made an exact joke of it should be good for the challenge because a lot of these people would feel the same way that they used to be worse. So I'll say the joke again.
Yeah, I was like, oh, should I change? I was like, is there a more appropriate shirt to wear for this podcast? I don't know. Um, Here's a question,
Oh,
and the
please.
great members of the Facebook group always have an answer. So I'll put it out to the listeners and to you. Please tell me the connection between Big Easy gassing out and the Gauntlet and this episode. We're just doing greatest hits now, right? Like we got to fit
I
that in
think so.
somewhere.
I think that's what we've morphed to. I mean, again, like maybe it's sort of jumping ahead to next week where I think we see Jenny maybe gassing out in whatever the daily is going to be, but that feels like a stretch because that's just like herself. That's not like a team or in a final or anything like that. So yeah, I think now we're just going down some of the best moments in challenge history, which unfortunately Big Easy I'm sure doesn't appreciate that being one of the best moments. It's like what the hell? I'm just trying to enjoy a season here. I don't need to see that. Yeah, I can't imagine how that played any relevant for this week.
I normally do a warmer setting. Is that
Ooh,
better? This is my normal,
okay.
because it's helping. The lighting is really the problem. Yeah, I was like again. I think you thought maybe it was a bait and switch last episode. I was like, are we going to the final now, or
Mm-hmm.
like is somebody gonna get eliminated? Like if Aviv was still in it, I was like, hold on to your fascia.
Right.
Aviv is going out, but no, there's absolutely no connection. And I'm sure again the clever minds in the Facebook group will be like, but Brad said this, and then that mirrored like Derek saying that. I'm like, all right, I'm willing to listen. I'm
I
willing
mean,
to
was there
learn.
a location change before that final? And is that what they're talking about? That it was for that? I don't know. Ugh, nothing there.
Honestly, the moment they should have called back to was Bananas and Nani getting screwed in Ride or Dies, making the
Right.
cement block
Easily.
puzzle. Like
Yeah.
maybe that's a little too on the nose, but it's right there.
I mean, it's better. I think he'd rather be two on the nose than like in the wrong zip code, which I feel like this one was.
um, so we spent a lot of time and excitement over the possibility that Corey was going to throw himself in, and there was going to be a decision between Tori and Jordan and Corey. That did not happen, but it's not the
Nothing burger.
challenge's fault. It's sometimes just the chips don't fall in the most interesting way.
I mean, it's their fault for even including it, right? Like, I guess they have to drum up a potential storyline, but the fact that it didn't amount at all, like, why even include the clip of Corey saying, like, I want to take on Jordan? I don't know. I feel like there had to be something else they can include that was relevant. There was not even a discussion in this episode of, like, him throwing it or, like, trying to sabotage Jordan. Like, there was nothing. It was just, like, Corey in his own head monologue of, like, what he would hope to happen. And it didn't even come close to happening.
Yeah, we do get Corey like reestablishing the narrative of like actually now Derek, Kylan, and Bananas are all like formidable opponents. No one is greater than the other.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan not even in this conversation anymore. And in defense of Corey, I think the biggest, not everyone agreed with me last week about Corey, and that's okay. I used to be worse, but what makes me feel even more solid in my position that Corey has been doing well or been playing the cards he was dealt well is Bananas criticizing his social game. Like my new thing is if Bananas criticizes your gameplay, you're probably doing a great job this season.
What if he compliments it? Because he's been complimentary of Josh and Derek, which I feel like are kind of polar opposites. So where does the compliment fall if you get it from Johnny?
What did he say about Josh?
I feel like he's talked about his social game that he's pretty likable.
I mean, I think he gets compliments. Like he criticizes those who are not working with him and he compliments those who are working with him. Derek may be the sort of neutral counterexample of just like, we're going to give Derek the flowers this episode. It would be hard not to. I mean, you'd have to hate Derek to not give him flowers for his performance this episode.
I'm trying to remember the timeline of everything. Like All Stars was filmed before this, but when this was filming, was All Stars airing? Because I just feel like that they were the big thing throughout All Stars was they're really setting Derek up to be like this like growing competitor, and then it kind of just like he made the final sort of, but like was like immediately eliminated. And I almost wonder like were they editing All Stars to build Derek up because they knew how well he did in 40. So it was kind of like laying the groundwork of like, look at Derek, he's ascending as a competitor, and then boom, he like really catapults through 40. Or is I don't know the timeline of like when these things are filmed and airing, if that's even like a theoretically possibility.
I mean, do we even know? Like, is there any connection between the people who edit this show and the people who edit that show? Like, I mean, it's like the same production company, right? But I don't know. I mean, that I feel like they don't even often build a narrative through the season, much less across franchises, across seasons. That would almost be like alienating. Like to that, like you really have to see Challenge All Stars 4, which filmed 4 years ago, to get this. But I don't know if like it. Maybe it is because we just watched All Stars 4, where I'm sort of beyond the narrative that Derek is an underdog after this season. I'm not blaming them for sort of doubling down on the same, hitting the same note across these two seasons. That whether it was intentional or not, sure. Let's look at these two seasons as a block of like Derek's rise. But I like what Michelle said. Like he's being seen as the underdog, but at this point, he's just a dog. Like there's just dog in him. And I think it does take a while to break old like associations. Like no matter what CT comes back as, you're going to think of CT as the same thing. No matter what Anissa comes back as, you're going to think of her a certain way. Like Derek is always going to be someone potentially who's like underestimated based on past challenges. But we do need to look at the last two seasons and say like, if Derek is showing up, he's not only a great social player, but he's a comp piece. He beat Jordan. He beat Corey. Like, no more underestimating the Derek man. Definitely needs a better nickname than that.
But he'll get there. I mean, his size is always going to play a factor, right? But honestly, with the way the challenge is skewing, his skill set is almost more deadly. Like you look at someone like Corey obviously towers over him size wise. Even think back to someone like Fessel, same thing. He towers over him size wise, but in certain eliminations, and certainly when you get to a final, Derek would seemingly be much more of a threat to do very well because of the type of things that he's able to do well with puzzles and endurance, and like the way he outsmarted Corey throughout this entire elimination is a perfect example of that. Like he is that type of dangerous player that would get overlooked, but in a certain spot would dominate.
Yeah, I think the one gap in Derek's game is what you're getting at is like what a Derek K has in like, despite his size, you're still gonna say he's like the favorite in pole wrestle against a much bigger guy. Like Derek C, I don't think is anybody's first pick in like a physical, purely physical headbanger elimination from a size perspective. But could he get to a point where he's just got enough heart and he's got enough smarts where he can sort of use his weight correctly or use his size to his advantage? Yeah, maybe. Like I could definitely see him pulling out some upsets. Even in the one-on-one tiebreaker he beat Jordan in, where he's like smashing targets. That's something I would think would favor a bigger person with like reach and, you know, more weight to like use his momentum, and he beat him in that. So
yeah. No, the way Derek is, he's like the perfect example of that old phrase. Like if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll always think it's stupid. So Derek is finding his place in the water and swimming as a fish should, and he's found his niche.
there you go. Love that. And Kara's there, like cheering him on. I think a lot of like the undertones. What?
Kara's there.
No, I meant like the next thing is like Kara and Derek are talking, and Kara's really there for him. And I think like that's sort of the one of the main parts of this episode is just like, well, what's Derek going to do? Is he going to pick Kara? Is he going to pick Michelle? I think I'm happy they didn't show us that Kara volunteered until the flashback, because it was like the only remaining piece of interest I had is like, is he going to put in Michelle or is he going to put in Kara? Were you annoyed that the reveal was like there actually wasn't any intrigue in there at all?
No, I mean, I didn't even think there was much intrigue anyway. I thought he was always going to save Michelle. I feel like they were close enough anyway. And I think they did enough building up that it could have been either of them going home. They each had the emotional FaceTime from home. Like the one that, you know, if we're judging it off that, I thought when Corey had his, it's like, okay, he's probably go, but Derek had his. They're really building up the Derek storyline with his sister, but then they're building up Corey, you know, can't come home a loser to Cheyenne. So they got all that going for him. So they did a good job of like keeping me real suspense. Of like, actually, I have no idea who's going to win this. So I thought they did a very good job editing it was.
See, I felt like there was just absolutely no way Derek could go home in this episode. And in All Stars 2, remind me what happens. I mean, I shouldn't say remind me. We can look it up. Like, I remember Derek coming to All Stars 2, getting nominated in the first elimination. That's where he, like, you know, writes her name, his sister's name on his arm when he goes in. Does he win that elimination, or does he go home first in that one? That's
no,
what
I think he
remember.
wins, because I think he beats what's his name? The one who like goes home first in like every single thing he's ever done in his entire life. You're about
Tyree?
to find out. Yeah.
I don't remember that, but like that's the description of that version. So
I think that's what happens.
Let's see really quick. Sorry, I'm just like curious for my own sake. God, the Wikipedia on these are so hard. Yeah, Derek C goes home against Nehemiah.
Oh, he lost.
So, okay, that makes sense, because I remember feeling like they like, you know, showed us the story of what he was dealing with and he went home. It felt different to me having not remembered. Now I can say it felt different to me this episode, because like, as somebody who is rooting for Corey, because I just feel like Corey's put himself in a good spot this season. I've just been impressed with him. I have a longer relationship with Corey, like on the show, in terms of like the podcasting era. Even I was finding it hard to like find a way that Corey was like being shown as someone who could possibly win or even be rootable this episode. Like Derek's heartbreaking story, Derek's like everybody's saying how great Derek is and how underestimated he's been in the challenge. I just thought this was like really Derek's episode, and it would have felt very confusing to me if Derek went home. Not impossible, just confusing.
Yeah, the stuff with Corey being like wanting to be a parent, based off the way he didn't grow up, and he's like, I want to be like that dad to my kid. I don't want to like be away from my kids and come home with nothing to show for it. I don't know. That could be easily be like the narrative for him in a final.
Yeah, it's very then go home to your kid. Now we're not as we're not that sad. No, not really. But it's like, all right, good. At least it's Aviv. It's at least I get to see my kids.
Right.
No, but I think I felt at least at the end, Corey kept saying, and I love this about him, and I agree that like getting there is not enough. Winning a certain number of eliminations is not enough. I just want to know that I can win.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, Derek had more motivation to like between his sister and to get there and more fight. And the edit to me showed like Derek, it would mean more to Derek to win this elimination than it would to Corey. Not that he's not devastated to lose, but it just felt like so much more like visceral and raw for Derek.
Sure.
Either way. And I'm sad to pre-eulogize Corey. I thought he gave it a hell of a fight. So I'm sad. I would have been sad to see either of them go out at this point.
Yeah, I was bummed to see Corey go. I would have been bummed to see Derek go. I'm hoping we see Derek in a final. I would love to see him how he would do it. I feel like he probably is there. Who knows? Maybe it could be like the fallen soldier cut short, like the first part of a final. I don't know, but love to see how he performs against. I mean, Kylan, Jordan, and Bananas is certainly a stack to field to compete against.
Yeah, I mean, I think his best chance if he finds himself in an final elimination. Now, I'm really jumping ahead, but I wouldn't mind to see like a 4-way elimination. But if we see like a traditional like 2-person elimination, his best chance has to be against Bananas, right? From like a puzzle perspective.
Yeah, I think his skill set, like against Bananas as a puzzle, like him and Kylan are pretty similar skill set, but Kylan would have had like the size and the strength over him. And Jordan's just like good at everything. But I feel like Jordan in the puzzle might not be like as good. So maybe like he can take him down like that. I don't know. That'd be kind of tough. But yeah, I would say he matches best up against John.
Speaking of John does a little math and he realizes as long as I don't come in last in the challenge, I'm good to go. I'm going to the final, which is amazing, I think, for a game where Bananas had to uncharacteristically like play from the bottom for a lot of the game. And, shout out to the Banana Man. His angel strategy did pay off. Like against all odds, it paid off.
Yeah, I mean, coming into the season, we were talking about how few connections he really had. I mean, he talked about himself on his own era. He was kind of like a one-man show, especially at least amongst the men. He wasn't really that close to, and he had a very complicated relationship with some of the women. Obviously, he got close with Laurel, but it wasn't like we were coming again being like, oh, Bananas and Laurel, or they're definitely going to be working together. They've had a complicated past, so that wasn't guaranteed. And there was obviously a very strong crop of men. He was fighting his way through it. Like, this is probably one of Bananas' most impressive seasons, if you really want to stack it up, considering the field he's up against. He's had to go into a few eliminations. He's had to navigate some other things. He built strong relationships with women that were instrumental with the way the format broke down this season. So it's an all in of one of his best seasons, regardless of how he does in this final.
Yeah, and that's a huge credit to Bananas of like the angel strategy really works better for him than it does the angels, right? Like Jenny and Rachel now are battling it out, and they have no choice because the only man when you're only working with one man and men save you, not so great, but great for Bananas. And if we're factoring it into like the discussion of like who's the GOAT between CT and Bananas, I like to see Bananas have to play a lot more of a game than some of the recent seasons that CT has done, where we come here and we are like, how are they letting CT walk to the end of this game? He's not having to do anything, So I'm not saying that if he wins this, he's number one, but I do think if he wins this, it's a more impressive win than a lot of CT's recent wins.
Yeah, if he beats Jordan and Kylan in this final, this is probably his best win ever, I would say. And considering he's doing it at this age for number 8, I would say reopen the discussion about who's the GOAT. I don't know. And then if Jordan wins, I think that's another discussion. Then it's like, I don't know between the three of them. It's like, it's crazy.
Not being like, we can't discount Derek and then him not even be a factor if he beats who he beats.
You're still kind of discounting him, but you never know.
Yeah, that will be interesting. I think that's where everybody needs to go. But even if he doesn't win, I still think, again, like making a final when this many people were against him and like sort of the format should have been against him is very impressive to me. And I hope we continue stuff like this where we don't see like a lot of these top dogs. That's what was so great about the season, is that it wasn't really just like one big group marching to the end. There was sort of a suitable opposition, which we like clamor for, but either the other folks are too inexperienced, too rookie, or too blinded by the vets, or afraid to go in to make something happen. So I should be so low on the season based on the last 3 episodes, and I'm just like, I'm loving it. Is that a Burger King for that McDonald's?
Yeah, a little competitor. I feel like, though, I think the growing sentiment is, I don't know if people are high on this season. I feel like people are. I mean, I'm a little.
I don't think they are.
Yeah, I feel like we're kind of on the outs, and I feel like I've seen some takes about 39 being better than this. I feel like people are very trapped in the moment of the challenge, and like once you get 3 seasons past other seasons, you look back much more fondly of those seasons. Like, I think when we were like inside 37, inside 38, which that's weird phrasing, when those seasons were happening, people were like very upset with those seasons and like had a lot of complaints. And now, being a few seasons removed from that, it's like, oh, I wish that's back in my day of like season 37, it was like so much better. Where again, I think people just forget how discombobulated some of these like late 30 seasons were. And like this season sure has had some problems. It probably would have been better if they shortened this a little bit and this was the finale, just from like a urgency standpoint. But with the cast of characters they have, this is like much better than like Total Madness and things like that.
Yeah, I've seen you jumping into the Twitter streets talking about the flaws of 39. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be a historian despite doing 10 years of podcast on this. But like all I could do, I feel very similar about Survivor. Like, to me, every season of the challenge is a good season of the challenge. That's why I'm sitting here. So even when I'm complaining about it, it's like we pick on the ones we love the most. But I do feel like all I could say is I feel like I've sat here more frequently being like, I like this episode, or this was interesting, or it's so great to see these people. Like, yeah, it's nostalgia is a huge factor, but I think it was so exciting to see the cast of 40 people. And I feel like I really got to see a lot of those favorites. I got to see different dynamics play out than have played out in the last 3-4 seasons. And that's been great to watch. Is it a little slower pace? Is it a little more old school? Is it, not as maybe cutthroat or conniving? Yeah, but like I think there's value. And like you said, like a little bit more about Derek. I thought it was compelling television, whether or not it was about who I can be compelled. I could be interested in who's going to go in and the strategy of it, which I think we've gotten a good amount over the season as a whole. And I could be compelled by like getting to know people more that I've been watching for 10 years. So I'm stumping for it. I agree. I think a lot of people are low on it, but maybe that's part of the joy of podcasting is like, we've got to come on here and find something to love about it. So we're Mitch watching the season.
Yeah. I'm having a good time. I'm having when I have an episode to watch, I'm like, oh, gotta get through this one. I'm like, no, I'm like, oh, great challenge episode. I'm excited. Let's see what happens.
So what people really want to know, Brian, people are excited to see what happens. Probably the most compelling thing people were looking forward to this week after the preview from last week is that people need to know if the Burger King marketing once again got to you, boy.
Yeah, we'll get to that in the daily right after this. Yeah, it 100% worked. It not only worked, it worked in the preview in the sense of I ordered it this weekend. Like I had it in anticipation of it. I saw it. I saw another commercial for the episode this coming week. I'm like, nah. I'm just boom, order. Give me that Burger King. It looks so good. I wish I saved it to eat it during watching the episode because when they were passing around those Whoppers and those fries, they look so good.
So you didn't hit it twice?
I did hit it twice, just the
Okay.
once, but it was so good.
Yeah, that was my first thought when I saw the preview, and then obviously people in the Facebook group were like, "Is Brian gonna have Burger King?" It's funny because in the daily setup, I was like, "They're not really selling the product," and then like,
Right.
okay, in lieu of a deliberation, we're gonna have a feast. That was a good move from the marketing side.
Yeah, I'm surprised they gave everyone the feast. Obviously, usually it goes to like the winners, but I guess they would prefer the $5,000. You can buy Burger King, I guess, when you get home with that $5,000 also. But good for them getting the whole kit and shaboodle.
Sorry,
I don't know, is that the phrase? Something.
the whole kit and shaboodle,
I don't know what's that phrase. The whole.
just out of the clouds.
Yeah, it's something like that. Add it to the list.
I believe it's kit and caboodle.
Is that what it's kit? There's an ad.
It's kit and caboodle, the whole
Kit
kit
and
and
caboodle.
caboodle. Now, what is a shaboodle? Do you have a problem
That's,
with the word caboodle?
what's a caboodle?
Kit and caboodle is an informal phrase that means the whole lot of something or everything available. For example, you might say, "We took along the whole kit and caboodle in the station wagon."
It doesn't really help with what the caboodle is, though.
I mean, it's like, okay, the
What's a
phrase is
kit?
thought to have originated from the word kit, which was meant collection since the mid 1700s, and boodle, which may have come from an Old English word for bottle, meaning bunch or bundle. The phrase was first recorded in 1884 and is only used in the United States. Yeah, no S on that. But what about kit and shaboodle? Should I search that?
Google it. Let's see what comes up.
Okay,
Don't
kit
get a
and
virus.
shaboodle was popularized by small-time podcaster Brian Cohen, first documented use in 2024. Oh, okay,
Look
interesting.
at that. Google already. They're tapped in. It's an AI model.
All right, let's talk about the shaboodle of the daily.
We got a fire plunge. This has been in the works for years. They've waited for every season. They're like, when can we do this daily? They finally get to Vietnam. They got the cliff they need. They can implement this challenge. Fire plunge. Everyone is strapped into a car, one by one. They have to solve some stupid like wire puzzle. I don't know, just to get some like lights to ding, and it gets oh, you did it, noise sound effect. And once that happens, the car falls off a cliff. They get pulled out. Then they drop into the water. Have to swim 500 meters to shore to stop their time.
I love the back from commercial restatement of the challenge from Derek, which is like basically what we're going to do here is hot wire a car, be flung off a cliff, and then do a 500-meter swim. Okay. I am so interested. Should you ever do another interview with someone from this cast again?
Mm-hmm.
I need to understand how the car was dry in between takes. I know you have like 10 minutes. Like, John, with the last question, remember that challenge with the car getting wet? Like, how much time was in between for the car to dry off?
Are we sure it was dry?
It looked dry. The only time I really paid attention was when like they reset for Kara, and it looked bone dry.
Interesting. That's a good. Well, by the time they were done, it was pitch black. So maybe they like literally just hand dried the car every time.
I would like, in a more interesting way. I mean, I'm trying to make this an interesting question. It's probably not to anyone but me, but like this begged a behind the scenes explanation of the logistics of the challenge. And perhaps like all of the podcasts done by people on the show will talk about that this week. But like, color me interested. Give me the whole kit and shaboodle behind this. I want to hear the full story.
I want to know the story about the other times they've scattered out locations, and I want to know why other cliffs wouldn't work. I feel like a cliff is a cliff. I don't know why they couldn't do it. Maybe there was no good place to like tie the rope to pull the people out from. There was nothing else. I don't know. But it feels like a pretty easy thing to do at many of the places they've been to.
Yeah, we have seen cliffs before. I don't know if it's like a legal issue. You can't just be flinging cars off the cliff. I don't know. But yeah, it did seem like a location issue. You know, maybe next time you talk to TJ at the beginning of the season, it seemed like he was really into talking about this. But you hit the nail on the head when you're explaining this. Like, this is not a puzzle, and I feel like they keep leaning on this a lot of like we had an elimination like this too, right? Where they had to untangle the wires and move in. Yeah. Like, it's not a puzzle to just do trial and error.
Right.
Until something lights up. That's like my nephew playing with one of his toys.
Yeah. Yeah, there was nothing to memorize. It wasn't they're like, oh, like connect the winners to the season, or like there was just guess which rope it is. I kind of hate when Survivor does that when they get like a 3 number code. Like, there's no skill to guessing what the order is when you're like unlock a key and smash it. It's just guessing the order, and you just happen to be right. Like that's the same thing. You just happen to guess it be right. I love the sound effect though. Like it was like very old school, like 1990s. Like, you got it right. Congrats. It was a fun little addition.
Now I'll say this, I guess I would prefer the like telephone operator thing to like they get in the car and they have to solve 4 equations, like on calling it hot wiring. But you know, the challenge got a little old to me, but I think they did a good editing job. Like it feels very much like the challenge I always reference, but I have no idea what season it was from or whatever, where they had to like hang off of like a boat, like a water ski, and it was like a challenge right before the final, and they gave everyone like kind of narrating voiceover on top of their like scenic strut, I don't know, whatever. And so I think they did a good job like establishing people's quote whys. As Rachel said, her why is just another notch on her belt. We start establishing like Jordan and Eric and Kara's motivation. So I didn't hate the edit of it, but like a little bit form over substance for me in this challenge, besides just the straight swim.
Yeah, I feel like they haven't had a swim in a hot minute, so I'm glad they implemented that instead of doing like another kayaking thing. We feel like we've done enough of that. Let's get the swimming involved, and it's always a good reminder that this is Kara's fatal flaw in any sort of final. If they have something like this in a final, it's really gonna knock her back. And if it's kind of always been the fear of like for someone like Jordan about why he's always been afraid with Kara in a final, like if he's paired with her, if they do different type of pairings in a final and they're doing the swimming thing, this is always where she struggles, and this was once again a struggle for her. And it's amazing to see Tori do as well. I mean, I feel like we talked about Rachel a lot, deservedly so, about her season. But if Tori goes on the win, this is just as much like Tori's dominating season as it is Rachel, because she's winning these dailies left and right and doing it without, a really much larger group protecting her that Rachel's had.
Yeah, not unlike the foil to Bananas. I mean, it was definitely one of Tori's more likable seasons as she went up against Bananas and was sort of willing to put herself into eliminations or at risk to rival him. And we saw her make sort of new connections with men she doesn't work with all the time, like Corey. So yeah, like I think her, Casey going out early-ish, kind of like an Anissa going out early. Yeah, as soon as I said it, I was like, am I sure about that? I'm just gonna say it. Helps her in that respect. And Jordan kind of really taking a backseat in the edit, at least this season, I think also helps that. It doesn't seem like she's behind him or like sacrificing her own game to help him. It really seems like she, played hard, which is not, I think, how the general audience feels about her game recently. One question I had is like, so Kara said like she gets a lot of messages all the time from like haters in her DMs asking if she's been working on her swimming. Are they all CT? Like her impression was like, have you been working on your swimming? Like it was very like Chicken Little again from CT, and CT does need to stay off Instagram these days.
And then she dropped like she dropped the Wicked out of nowhere. I don't know if that was like the Wicked marketing budget is really like pulling some strings here, but she pulled that out. Yeah, but it's crazy though. Like again, Kara's been on the show forever. How have you not gotten better at swimming? Maybe like she would have been better. Like if this was like a women's day, like I feel like she was taking a little bit more lackadaisical. The fact that there wasn't much on the line for her, so wasn't that big of a deal. But still,
but great. If you win, you're safe next week.
Yeah, totally.
So like it's where you're not safe, but you won't be a target. So you just have to not lose. Like I think that's a big prize.
It is.
And her attitude was irritating to me, where she's just like, count me out forever. Like I wasn't born in a pool. Like you weren't born riding a horse at a gym either. And like, look at how you've transformed your life. That's her whole point. So I thought that was a very off-putting attitude. I was surprised about Kylan that we get them saying like specifically that Kylan's like, Achilles heel is swimming. Do you think we're going to get swimming in the final? I only ask this because this feels very close to have a big swimming challenge right before the final. And I always associate the kayaking or boat rafting more with a final than I do straight swimming.
So what was the phrase TJ said before the location change? He said something like, did he say we're
It's
going
gonna be a
somewhere
lot
not
less
green?
green.
A lot less green. So to me, that implies they're going somewhere almost like wintry, and it's like more like in the mountains and so, or something like that, where there wouldn't be like trees and water. Like if it's
So
less
I
green,
thought
I would
so.
imply it's less tropical, and that would imply not doing swimming.
So I agree too, unless it's really deep wicked marketing and it's gonna be pink. But
Ooh,
I
close.
agree. I thought desert or snow, obviously, but
Yeah,
then they show that whole like they seem to move before the women's. I interpreted this to mean they were going to travel before the women's elimination.
that's what I thought, but that would be weird to do.
I know, but it was weird to announce this then.
Yeah,
And then they do so like, but you're probably right because what they showed of the challenge with this like weird shipwreck was not a lot less green. So a little
I
out
don't
of
know.
order there on the teaser.
Interesting.
But do you like forget that clue? Like, do you see swimming? I guess you can't forget that clue, but like, do you think they're like foreshadowing anything here, like with Kara with Kyland, or that was just like the result of the final?
Yeah, it's hard
Sorry,
to
of this
say.
challenge.
I think it was probably more so here, like just to talk about that for the first time, probably like all season. Kylan's done poorly, so just to like give some context as to why. I mean, it's possible they're setting up something in the final, and Kylan's going to struggle with that. That I wouldn't put it past them, but I don't think it's Chekhov swimming.
So Tori and Jordan win. They get $5,000 from the BK fund, and the losers are Cara and Derek. We find out it came down to Kyland and Derek. If Kyland won, Derek
Lost.
goes in here, right? With Tori and Jordan at the helm. Tori making the decision between Corey and Derek.
If Kylan lost and it was between
Right.
Corey and Derek,
I say win, yeah.
then yeah, Tori would send. I think Tori would send in Derek. Although
That's
she
such a
was,
bummer.
I mean, she was like really talking. Like I think she kind of says like I'm rooting for you, and this is I love Corey because I mean, as much like Tori says she's like rooting for Corey through the season and would want to work with him, but they're not that close, and it would be very Corey to have the rug pulled out from under him here. But I think Tori would throw in Derek, but I don't know because Tori like he was getting very emotional with Derek the way he was talking about obviously with his sister as anyone would like that would be tough to do almost to like throw Derek in there with everything going on. I don't know, that would be a very tough decision.
It depends. I feel like on All Stars 2, he did not lead with the stuff with his sister before he got voted in. So I don't know. It doesn't feel very Derek to like say it at the deliberation to like try to be safe because of it. I wouldn't blame him if he did. I wouldn't even say he's using it. I'm just saying it doesn't feel very Derek to like put that forward. But I think that would be I think Tori's response to Derek telling that story in sort of the girly swirly environment of like the birthday balloons for Michelle and in a friendship out of game moment, like it would be crazy to not say something like I love Corey, but I'm rooting for you. That
Right.
doesn't mean like I'd put Corey in instead of you if I had the chance. The only thing for me that might change it is if like Jordan said, let's take a shot at Corey against Kyland because Corey's more likely to be able to take out Kyland for the final. And then Tori might be in a spot of like, I'm quote unquote choosing between Jordan and Corey. So Kyland losing would have been a much more interesting result, but unfortunately, we did not get that.
Big unfortunate.
If only Tony survived to get a redemption BK feast. Can you imagine?
Tony and his crown could have had it. Didn't throw
Had Tori in the
in
crown.
like episode 2. That feels forever. Oh my god, that feels so long ago.
It was. So we get some good moments, like Corey and Derek talk. I will say Corey's outfit is absolutely insane in the best way. This like orange like hat and this like orange and blue swirl paisley shirt and all his jewelry. I was just like, damn. Corey is like, that's that teen mom money. Like Corey's dressed like someone whose full-time job is on television. Isn't it interesting that they don't really talk about that? Like, you would think there'd be some meta
Right.
conversation of like how Corey is separately on another regular MTV show.
I mean, that's not atypical for the challenge. I mean, Asaf was on another MTV show and they only referenced Dancing with the Stars that he was on and when he came on this show. So it's not
It's not on
too
Dancing with the
crazy.
Stars, but
Was it not Dancing with the Stars? What was he on?
it was so you think he could dance. Yeah,
So you think he could
that's
dance?
right.
But like that's what he was referenced as. Like that was his show that he came over from, not literally Are You the One.
That's fair. Um, and then it's so interesting. Let's talk about Jenny's huge fail. Like, I hate to say this. Don't cut this clip. And who cares what I think?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm ready to never see Jenny on this show ever again. Like,
Mm.
I just don't think. And maybe it's just unfortunate that she's on this season with such like kind of like elite experienced players slash people who I have such nostalgia for. But like her pitch to Derek. Now, obviously, she doesn't see the edit we see of like this emotional toll that this is taking, having to go into an elimination on his sister's birthday, and talking about it, being so open and vulnerable about what happened. And Jenny comes in and is like, remember when Theo was here? Like, sit down. You put him up as a target. Like, you're not going to now retroactively be like, but I hurt you the least out of the 3 women you're choosing between. Like, read the room, Jenny.
Yeah, but I mean, isn't it better if she tried than to do
Not no,
nothing?
like I think I gave Corey credit the last time he did this, where he was like sussing it out, but being supportive and being there. It's very Seinfeld. Like, I'll be there for you, and then suddenly I'm just there. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's how you have to play it. I feel like she played this with no finesse. She played it like John plays it in such an irritating way. Like, you owe me versus like the relationship we've built or anything beyond that. And I just feel like, unfortunately for Jenny, Derek was in such a dark, personal, heavy place that you just can't go into his room. He was like dressed to go to the elimination.
Right.
And she's like, "Can I count on your vote?" Like, kick rocks, Jenny. You put me in here.
Yeah, it's the type of move though that what is he gonna do? You can't make you doubly target. So like, sure, it went bad, but you might as well try. Sure, the timing and the finesse was great. Jenny's not, as Casey would point out, not the most socially adept player, so it was probably never gonna work regardless. But I'm okay rolling the dice, seeing what you got. You know, try to cash the check. I think yeah, she went in too much. Like, oh, I had this check. I'm turning into the bank now. Give me my money. Like, it's not going to work with someone like Derek, but it's better than just to take it.
Maybe again, it's just like the environment she's in. And if she was on a regular season with a regular cast, she wouldn't stick out as much to me. I just feel like time and time again, Jenny is sitting in power when she really has no power and is like demanding people grovel to her, or like complaining that she can't understand why people on her team are targeting her. And now it's like, oh, I can't understand why Derek, who I've been working on the opposite side of, and his best friends versus me, and like why he'd put me in when 6 weeks ago I saved him one time, which wasn't even really a save of him. It was more like a target of the other person. So I don't know. I'm being tough on her, but I feel like she does, like, her social game does like stick out like a sore thumb in amongst these ranks.
Sure, but I kind of like that. I think it's fun that she's like socially
You're welcome
awkward
to
and
like it.
horrible, and she's kind of a mess. That's a fun thing to bring to a game.
I like self-awareness, but you're right. It's not the best probably for a challenge contestant to be self-aware. All right. I really liked the meta, for anyone who's like, this episode was slow, I hear you, but I did like the meta men's conversation about
Mm-hmm.
Bananas trying to psych Colin out for the final and discussing whether there'd be an elimination.
Yeah, no, I've always wondered if they talk about this type of stuff, how what they think, whether there's going to be elimination in the final, what are we going to the final? Yeah, confirm they talked about it. Like the Bananas tried to psych Kylan out. Love Tori. Be like, don't listen to him over there. Still focus on yourself. That was funny from the peanut gallery over there. But, I'm sure for Kylan, like it's the type of thing he's watched all these seasons on TV, studied them. It's a lot different studying a final than being a part of it. As much as we see from all these shows, you're still only seeing a very small glimpse of it. So being a part of it is a much, much different thing. And I'm sure they're picturing for season 40, they're going to make the final pretty darn tough to, across this like big monumental season. So any edge you can get, might as well take it.
We talked about the conversation Derek had with Tori and the other women. One thing I will say is I loved the choice MTV made to have Derek give a plug about if you're, struggling or someone is struggling with grief or mental health. And they gave the mental health is health.us link in the middle of the episode. I thought that was such a good choice instead of just the card at the end where maybe people are tuning out or fast forwarding or whatever. And something we didn't talk about with Nelly T, I think a lot of the listeners were upset at us, but were upset that they didn't address the circumstances around Nelly T's car accident. And I think that would have been something they could have done is put a card in about drinking and driving resources and or alcohol resources, something like that. But I really loved how they chose to do it in the middle of the episode here.
Yeah, it almost made me think, why do they never have someone say it themselves? And obviously, you think it's part of the episode, right? You just think it's Derek giving a confessional, and then it obviously cuts to something different. So yeah, it definitely keeps your attention, makes you listen, and yeah, I mean, they definitely could have done something with the Nelly T thing. I'm sure they didn't, but I wonder if did they do something at all? When it happened, did they include anything about a little flashcard about something? I don't know. I mean, they could.
I clearly remember there was a mouse in this apartment last week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they could have easily done a card. I wouldn't be expecting Corey to shame him on camera while it was happening, but they easily could have done a PSA to it.
All right, yeah. I mean, I think closing time. Unless there's anything else you want to talk about before we get to the arena.
No, I mean, the Cheyenne conversation was hysterical.
I love their relationship.
I love them. I'm glad Corey has his new girl. They have a nice little family there. But Corey and Cheyenne were great. They needed their own. They could have
talk about erasure of someone from Are You the One? Tori has this new girl. I mean,
I can't remember her name.
They've been together for so long.
I always think of her the girl that looks like the one from Vanderpump Rules, who you said she does not look anything like, but I think she does.
You think she looks like Vale, right?
No. The one who was on season 8, who does the podcast with Katie now.
Oh, Dana?
Yeah.
Some people just know Taylor and some people don't. But yeah, I mean, anytime you get to see Ryder K is a treat. And all of his girls are adorable, obviously. Yeah. Cheyenne and Corey, such a success story coming out of the challenge and moving on to Teen Mom with their respective families, and a great example of co-parenting. Mm-hmm. Cheyenne, dragging him was great. Loved it. Miss Cheyenne, get Cheyenne back here.
Yeah.
Cheyenne for the challenge 45.
Let her host a reunion. I don't know if we did her on the season. Let her host a reunion. She could do that.
I follow her on Instagram, and I don't follow a lot of people from the challenge. I'll tell you that for free.
And Cheyenne should know, the longer Corey is lasting, I'm sure his pay is going up. Maybe, obviously, he's not going to place here, but I'm sure he made more money than someone like Leroy, who got knocked out immediately. So, he cashed some bigger check, I would hope.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know their financial situation, but typically, whatever he owes her is predetermined. Doesn't really matter. I don't know how much it matters, how much he comes back with. I mean, maybe it does. All right. Anyway.
To the elimination. Closing time.
I'm are they doing a recalc every time he comes back from the challenge? No. Okay. Back to the elimination.
Closing time. Each person has to turn a wheel to lift. I think it's just a guillotine. I don't know. I'm sure it's just a wall.
I mean, I don't think if you got caught under it, your neck would roll, your head would roll.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a door.
It's a door. I guess it's a door.
A guillotine is off with your head.
Is a guillotine just based off? I mean, it is no matter what that, but if it's based off the force that chops the head off. But I think it's still. All right. Regardless, it opens the door.
The guillotine is a heavy blade. A machine with a heavy blade sliding vertically in grooves used for beheading people.
I mean, if you got that door like going full speed, it's probably not sharp enough. Probably not.
I have to believe that there's some sort of mechanism in place so that it would not function as a guillotine. But I hear you. I take the point.
There wasn't enough force. Yeah, probably not. Okay, regardless, you turn the wheel, lift the door.
Can you imagine? That's how the challenge goes out. Is like someone didn't turn the wheel enough in their head, and they got beheaded in the arena.
Well, I'll say this: I thought the daily was like kind of particularly scary, like and dangerous. Like, what if you didn't like pull the person up in time and they went tumbling over, like or the rope got caught somehow and like wrapped around a door or something like that, and they got flung down with the car. I thought that was like a particularly like dangerous setup for a daily with not as
You
much
need to be
payoff.
asking about that. Yeah, that's part of the shaboodle. Ask them
Mhm.
about this elimination or
Turn the
challenge.
wheel, run through.
Don't ask them
the-
about this elimination. I
run
don't
through
think
the
we need to be like, were you
guillotine.
worried your head was gonna fall off?
Collect a lot of cement blocks, race it around, and build a challenge logo image.
So it's so interesting. First of all, TJ flags that like all eras are represented, and like shout out to Rachel for them being able to say that. But
Mhm.
we do go into this elimination 1-3-3-3 across the eras,
Hmm.
which is kind of
That is
amazing
cool.
from eras 2 to 4.
That is cool. Fun.
Um, it also is interesting to me that this is now the third elimination that someone has just tried to like brute force it instead of being methodical, and it
Mhm.
didn't work. Like you'd think like maybe the edit influences that, but like right, that happened with Nia and Michelle, where Nia just tried to like do all of the equations at once and then like gassed out.
Right.
And now I'm forgetting what the other one was, but there was another one. Did Devin
What
win
was
it?
the one? Was that the same one where they were putting the poles up, and there was like another step to that one? It was like the monkey bars type thing. There was another step to that one.
Anyway, it probably there's just there this is I feel like the third time where the lesson of the tortoise and the hare and like the
Mhm.
strategizing wins out, that it's like Corey, man, it's hard to justify, like how were you not, like how could you not, and I reserve the right to be like I never would be on one of these shows, and if I was it'd be terrible, but sitting here, how could you not be trying to like put the puzzle together when it's something
Right.
as heavy as cinder blocks? Like
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to reorg these on that little platform.
Yeah. No, it's unfortunate because Corey was doing so well through this season, doing different puzzles and doing different strategy things, and I think he just underestimated the heaviness of them and like the time commitment it would take to move things around and build it. Maybe he thought it'd just be super easy to build once he's doing it. Yeah, because I mean, this was like old school Corey, just like thinking he could just run through a wall and just solve his problems and not, taking a step back to think about it. Yeah, this was unfortunate because this really went against how much progress Corey has made as like a full, well-rounded competitor through this season.
Yeah. But I was happy for Derek. I was so happy for Derek. Well deserved. Brawn and brains here on
Yep.
full effect. And I was, I was happy for him.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was. Even Corey, when it was over, gave him a big hug. I mean, how could you not be? I mean, everyone's going to be rooting for Derek in some regard. Obviously, the men aren't going to be like, fully rooting for him come the final, but everyone's going to be hoping he does his best and it goes well. I mean, he's a very likable guy. That's why he's so dangerous in these shows because he's building a lot of deeper connections now. He's already a pretty likable guy. So that's what makes him pretty darn scary.
I'm looking through. Yeah, wow. Remember the 100 nails when Tina stripped all the nails?
Sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I wonder. I think you're saying it was like the DNA one with Olivia and Michelle. Maybe it was that.
Yeah.
But we find out the targets are Jenny, Rachel, and Cara. No surprise, Cara volunteer, which I think is a good move. I don't like the move because I think never volunteer. But to your point, like first of all, Derek was having a tough time, and Cara was probably going to go in anyway. So maybe it's like fake good faith. But even if it was just being nice and everyone knew Cara was going to go in anyway, Michelle owes Cara her life because like Jenny, Rachel, and Cara as the three targets, Michelle better pray she does not lose the next week's elimination.
Yeah, I mean, Cara gets the penalty, which is huge for Michelle for sure. Especially because obviously with 39, she was like so close to the final and got purged out. Here, she just has to avoid going last. I would love to see Michelle make a final. It would mean she would have a big uphill battle against the women she would be competing against, but just making the final, considering where she stood throughout this game, is incredible. Kind of similar like with the Bananas on that side of it. Like they were both kind of really on the outs. Obviously, they're targeting each other really, but they were both the ones more on the outs between the men and the women. And the fact that they're both now pretty likely to be competing in the final is pretty crazy for both of them.
100%. We find out we're going to be traveling. Poor Corey. Kind of sucks that he's there when they make this announcement.
I know, they could have made from relief.
Which I think you made like a finish your drink if they changed locations. I love that they did the flashback and like the history of the location change. Like that was awesome. Another drinking game thing. I'm curious to see how Kyle's going to score it next week. Of when somebody says like I do X back at home, so I'm gonna be good at this challenge. Derek's like I used to steal cars. Just kidding. Like, but see if that counts.
We'll see. We have the drinking game from last week though. Get to that. Shout out Kyle Picard. Great job all season, as always. Just killing it. For this week, we pulled up a last DM was with your buddy Akiva.
What?
This week.
Wait, what?
Because they put one of my ideas on the wheel. So I was like, that was my idea.
You're saying your last DM was with Akiva. I thought you were pulling up a DM with Akiva to get the drinking game. And I was like, you have to explain that.
There were six just last week. The Amanda in the Tunnel for the confessional animation. 3 alliance names, 1 picture coming to life. And just 1 mention of kids and family. Quiet week.
All right. Do we want to put some rules together for the final? Or you want to do that next week?
Let's do it next week when we because it doesn't seem like the final's starting next week. It feels like we're getting
I agree. But... The announcement of the traveling is weird. It maybe suggests that there's not going to be such an interesting decision to make next week, and they're going to need to like show the traveling. But
you would think so, but there wasn't much of the decision to make this week, and they stretched that the full hour and a half. So
yeah, but they talked about what was going to happen next week.
That's true.
So we'll see. Looking forward to next week, nonetheless.
Yeah, that's it. Episode 16. You can subscribe. Rob's website.com/challenge. Feed, Twitter, Cohen Brian _ for the final few weeks. Hopefully not, but maybe. TikTok, challenge wrap-ups, Blue Sky, Cohen Brian, no _ I think there's some other app, something 8. Maybe I'll get over there. Like it's something 8. I don't know. There's like another version of TikTok. I think. I don't know. I'll have to join that. Follow you.
Don't follow me anywhere. Join the Facebook group. Leave us a review. Also, I'm pleased to announce that we had an episode of New Girl Old Guy. We are back. It was a lot of fun. Teaser. Akiva and I debate or discuss what would be harder to reveal in early dating, that you're being haunted by a ghost, you're being followed around by a mouse every house you live in, or you were previously married. So, talking about life's greatest questions and things relevant to New Girl for sure. Check that out, New Girl Old Guy.
I think the mouse is by far the worst. It's going to follow you everywhere you go. That's bad.
Like just like house to house. Like you're not going to be like walking down the street and the mouse is behind you.
Yeah, that's even worse.
Well, okay, I guess that's how you feel good about ghosts. Ghosts are pretty scary.
Not all of them. It could be. I mean, there's Casper. He's quite friendly.
This was obviously discussed. Check it out. New Girl Old Guy. Then leave us a comment if you disagree.
We'll be back next week for episode 17. This season can get a driver's license here in New York. Until next week, happy Halloween. Have a good one.